Good morning, Gail.
Michael?
Yeah, how you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. Is there any way to get this other than Facebook?
Yes, I think I wrote you back. Maybe it was somebody else this morning. Yeah, I will be posting all videos on YouTube and sending out a link in email.
Lovely, okay.
Yeah, and they should be
I
safe
gave
there.
up Facebook, it made me mad.
What's that?
I'm not on Facebook anymore. It made me mad one day.
Yeah, no problem. I understand that. It is our best space for sharing, projects.
All right.
That way everybody can share and see it. So you may, if you decide to join the class more, I think,
I'm going to. There's no question, Michael. I just didn't do it the other day.
no worries. You may want to do it and then only join that page and just treat it just like that. Just, fight the urge to ever investigate all the rest of the nonsense that's on there.
All right.
You all know I'm the only good thing on Facebook, so.
Well, there is that. We know that already.
I am Facebook.
Now, I hope my sister signed up. I think she did, from Palm Desert.
Ooh, wow, what's her name?
Jan Slauson. She would have done it just yesterday.
Let's see, just yesterday. Did you forward her the class Zoom link perchance?
No.
Because I don't know. If you want to really quickly, just in case, email her the link, forward her that email, just in case she didn't sign up in time. That way she can still join us.
Okay.
And I will check.
Maybe she didn't sign up in time. I don't know.
Jan Slauson. I do have her on the list.
Okay.
I'm just, oh, wow, geesh, I have 28 students now. Oh, man, I need to send those out real fast.
Okay, you do it. I'll stop talking.
Okay, see if I can, man, because, yeah, I just checked a little bit ago and it said 24 students.
Oh, my gosh, so you got 4 more. Ooh, well, go do it. I won't bother you.
Okay, let's see if I can just forward this. Hopefully, Emily gave them all the information because I've been connecting Emily to all of it just in case.
I'll call her right now and tell her that you're just forwarding it.
Sure. Man, I can't find my email that I sent out to everybody. No, that was that one.
I was on last night too. It was fun.
Oh, you were good.
I didn't get to see the whole thing, but Well, she's not answering.
Yeah, it's interesting. One list is the one that has the email still only says 24 students, and then the other one says 28.
I think some of the people from the Saturday class probably signed up too.
Yeah, my class sign up. Oh, there's a second page. No, that's already there. Interesting. Yeah, my notes are inconsistent. One says 24 and the other one says 28. And unfortunately, the one that says 28, I don't have emails on that list.
Okay.
So I'm very hopeful that Emily.
Hi, Jan. This is Gail. Please pick up. I'm on with Michael right now, and I think there was some confusion about the last people who signed up yesterday. So would you please call me? He is sending a link to you as we speak. Bye. Or I am. I'll send a link to her.
Let's see.
I'm going to have to leave you.
I just sent it.
Oh, good. Okay.
There's four. There. Yeah, just a minute. Michael,
Yeah.
Denise Castino also, excuse me, didn't get a link. Can I send it to her?
Yes, please. Yeah, I don't have her signed up for the class.
Oh, well, you signed up, right?
I paid for it yesterday with my credit card.
Okay, she paid for it yesterday, so
Please do. Yeah, thank you so much. That's great. I love having her in class. I'm wondering because maybe the office isn't open if it hasn't updated the emails for people that signed up overnight. All right. Well, good morning, everybody. Am I still doing screen share?
Let's
Stop
see.
share. All right.
Oh, Donna is there. Oh, goody. Donna from Saturday class, Michael.
Yep, Donna's the one that answers all the questions correctly, so it's good to have somebody like that in the class. Great, let me do a quick, see if I can switch to my other camera, make sure that's all set up. All right. Just from last night's demo and today's class. All right. Make it sure it's live. There's my hand. Great. Yeah, I just like to make sure I give everybody a couple minutes to make sure everything is working. If anybody wants to test their sound so they can talk to me, a great way to do it in class is if you simply just hold down the space bar while you're talking. That way you don't forget to unmute it. If you want to try that, Donna.
Hello, everybody. Glad to be here.
All right, perfect.
I've lost you.
You lost me.
I've lost the picture. It's okay. I'll find it. There we go.
Gail, we're seeing your picture, so you need to mute.
All right.
And I'm back. Let's see if I can remember how to mute everybody. Okay. All right, we have 10 people here so far. We'll give everybody a couple more minutes and we can kind of start slowly anyways and just kind of say hi. I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody. You're welcome to unmute yourself, but that way it's just kind of automatically done. And you, hey Denise, you can simply unmute yourself again by just holding down the space bar and talking. That's the easiest way for a lot of people. That way they don't forget, or if a dog starts barking or whatever else. Or you're more than welcome to unmute yourself. This is a very interactive class. I definitely like to hear from everybody. Great questions, hopefully lead to good answers. And I like it to be as interactive as possible. So I welcome that. And yeah, it looks like we've got a number of students that are continuing from my first 2 classes this year, and a number of new students as well. So that's fantastic, and welcome everybody. And it did look like I had 4 new signups this over the night, but I was not able to get their emails. So hopefully the school is able to do that. Hey, Lauren, or Karen, sorry. Hi, Karen. I should have my glasses on. I do a lot of squinting when I'm at this part of the teaching. Okay, Peggy, hi.
Hi, Denise.
Yeah, and hopefully you guys enjoyed the glazing lesson last night. That was kind of a last minute invitation. I apologize. And I didn't quite realize there was so much business they were going to go over in the beginning. Otherwise, maybe I could have invited everybody to come at 6:30 versus 6 or whatever time, 7:30. But hopefully that was fun and a little bit educational. We're not going to do a whole lot of glazing in this class. Maybe some in the luminous portion of our paintings. And yeah, and I'm really excited for today because we are going to be doing a lot of playing. I know whenever I suggest people do some abstract painting that I get a lot of eye rolls and, oh, I just hate abstract painting. But I think what I'm going to try to do is not convince you to like abstract painting in the generic sense, but to convince you that all painting is abstraction. And that what it does, especially for me, is allows me to break up the painting into its component parts so that I'm able to just focus in on whatever element of the painting I want. So today will be edges and introducing brushwork, which we'll go over a lot more in next week's class. So edges are really important. Painting on the edge, the name of the class. So kind of the impetus. And I think it's one of the most overlooked things, and one of the things that makes a beginner painter's painting, look like a beginner's painting is just the lack of variation in edge quality. So, all right, I don't know how many students we have now. What is that? 16, 17, including me. So just a minute or 2 more. I'm going to go ahead and do a screen share while we're waiting so we can pop over and look at our Facebook page. All right, everybody see a whole bunch of pretty colorful pictures now. So this is the reference portion of our group our private Facebook page. So I've just gone ahead and posted a whole lot of just different photos I've taken over the years. You're free to paint from them during the class and do what you want with them. And of course, you are always encouraged to paint from your own references or whatever you would like. I just put a number of these up so that people don't, waste all week looking for the ideal painting. You can just grab one of these and run with it. let's see here. So that is hidden in the media section. When you go to the main page, you'll get a whole bunch of different options there. So in the media section is where I've hidden the references. I've also started an album of just different artists' paintings. I'll be talking about some of these today in class, but I thought it'd be nice if you just had them as well to look through. I've grabbed a selection of historical and modern painters, and even a couple from friends of mine without asking them. Hopefully it's okay. And let's go to our discussion page. So when you go to the discussion page, you'll see the list of all of the students there that have signed up. So far, we have 19 out of between 24. I'm not sure how many students we have exactly right now. I will be posting, as we record these classes, I will start a section where all 6 classes will be couched there in one easy to find spot that will remain locked to the top of the conversation page. So that makes it really easy. I will also, as soon as they're recorded, be emailing at the end of the day. It usually takes, it seems like about all day for me to get it downloaded from Zoom to my computer, and then from my computer to YouTube. And then I will get the link and I will post it on the page, as well as sending out an email for you. Also, I will be doing my class announcement, just like the one that I emailed out, on the top of the page each week. And that will also be emailed to you. And I will try to remember to put the link for the Zoom on there each time, even though it is the same. So you don't have to look for a new Zoom link every class. It will be the same Zoom link all 6 weeks. And on our Facebook page is a fantastic spot, like Kathleen did here, to share the paintings that you are working on, to share some of the assignments, or any cool little things that you are learning during the class, any questions you may have. I will try to do my best to get over there at least a couple times during the week and respond. I love the fact that, look at all these nice responses everybody's got going on here for Kathleen's new painting. I love the interaction that we get, and everybody's giving each other feedback. Here's some questions and some, what people are looking forward to in the class. Also links to more of the paintings. So every time I add new artwork, it will be posted on the page. So this is just a great way for us to share with each other. It's not the only way. I will be emailing, like I said, the video link and the class information. But as far as sharing and critiquing, the Facebook page is the best. Keeps us all on one place, easy to scroll through. If I comment like on this, it will go to the top of the page. So it makes it a little easier for me to follow what's most relevant or what's newest on the page. And a really neat thing too is if you click on, let's click on Kathleen's name here, it will take us to everything that she's done on the page, like posting happy faces. So far Kathleen has these 2 posts on our group page. So that's a great way to just see what everybody's up to. Also, as it loads here. Sorry, one too many clicks. I was gonna say also what it will do is show the pictures as they are put on generally. Maybe it's in the about page. Nope. Sorry, I'll keep figuring it out as we go. But a lot of times there's a group of the photos as they're posted. So anyways, that is our group. It's private. And like I said, it's just a great way to everybody to stay in contact with each other, get to know each other, Nothing better than making some new friends in a class, which is a little tougher on a Zoom class, but hopefully this makes it a little bit easier. That makes sense for everybody? Is everybody comfortable with Facebook? Is everybody willing to join? Besides, I know one person, I won't name her. Everybody else willing to go on there and join us on there, I hope. If not, there are workarounds, of course, using email and stuff, but it definitely adds more work for all of us. And if you are kind of anti-Facebook, I totally understand. It can be a big time suck and it can be frustrating. At least now there's no elections going on, so it's a little more friendly. But you can just ignore all that and just make it so this is your main page that you come to and leave to. You don't have to go to Facebook if you can fight those urges, if you like. So great. What I'm planning to do, I think that's enough time. I think hopefully if people want to join, they can, but that should give us enough time. My goal for today is to show you edges. We're going to talk a lot about edges. We're going to talk about hard edge, firm edge, soft edge, and lost or what I call merged edges, where they really just kind of blend out. And then I want to show you about edge using color or chroma. We've got hue, value, and intensity there. And that's one that a lot of people don't think about when they are painting edge. And basically, the important thing to think about in edge is whenever two things meet, be it separate or different values, different colors, different temperatures, that creates the illusion of a line. So a lot of times when we're talking about line in painting, it's not like in a drawing. It's actually where two things, two colors, two values, two different forms of painting come together. That will create a line, and we're going to talk about that and how that controls the viewer and leads our eye through the painting. One more quick note on how this class works is you are always welcome to paint along with me during the class. I usually have about 2 or 3 students standing and painting and listening, but it does seem to me that most students actually write notes, maybe draw little pictures during the class. And the great thing about having it recorded is you can watch it again while you're painting. And that way you can pause it, you can fast forward through all these boring parts like what I'm doing right now. And I will try to list a brief overview of the minutes, like the first 15 minutes is Gail and Mike talking because we signed in too early, and then get to the next 15 minutes is me just discussing class and how it's set up, and then I start painting value scales at the 35th minute, and color scale or edge using color at whatever, and then we start talking about how artists use edge. And then I get to abstract painting, which I hope to do, if you can believe it, 8 little abstract paintings. That might be a little ambitious. I'm challenging you guys to do at least 4. And then bonus points, if you want that gold star for your first class, is if you will do the edge scales that I will be doing here in just a minute. And that is completely for you. It's like doing the color wheel or color charts. Kind of boring, kind of tedious, maybe a little redundant, maybe even it feels a little bit obvious, but it's fantastic to have these references available to you in your studio. I don't know if you can see in the far back corner, right back up there, sitting up against the wall on both sides of that area, I've got just all sorts of different charts that I refer to, the color wheel and different variations on the color wheel being my most common, and value charts and edge charts being really important. So I'm hoping you find it useful, and it's pretty quick. What I simply did was I took oil paper. You could use cardboard, you could use an old dead painting, whatever you want. I just painted it black with black gesso, but white's totally fine, would work just as well. I just did it so I think it'll show up nicely. And when I remove the tape for the big reveal, hopefully we got a beautiful little color or edge chart to refer to. It's kind of nice when your studies look kind of pretty. It makes you want to keep them in your studio a little more. But don't worry about that. I'd rather you learn than make something beautiful. And that goes for all of our paintings. Learning is by far and away the most important. When we're learning, we're experimenting, we're trying new things, we're being brave. And I do believe that we can learn a lot from paintings. I don't want to say mistakes, but paintings that maybe don't quite live up to our high hopes and expectations. But that being said, I do hope that we all go home with a couple beautiful paintings by the end of this class. Just another quick overview of the class. Today, we are doing abstract paintings, dealing with edge quality. Next week, we are gonna start learning about tonalism and soft brush edges. I will show you a couple examples of artists throughout history that I just love. I think it's a great way to use a limited palette. And that way we're not worrying about color quite as much. And we can experiment again with just different edge quality, different techniques of leading the viewer through, kind of the things we're going to be learning today. The painting after that will be a luminous painting, which is a style of painting that I feel relates quite closely to the tonalist painting, but that's where you get the glowy, awesome atmosphere, get real contrast between warms and cools. And that will be a great way. I know there's a number of you that signed up specifically because you like the way I paint light and atmosphere. So that will give us a chance to play with some of that. And then after that, we are going to finish the class with Impressionism. I'll probably kind of focus a little bit more towards Monet, but I would like to introduce you guys to some American Impressionists, some California Impressionists that I really, really like. In fact, I didn't really like Impressionist paintings that much until I discovered the California Impressionists. The French Impressionists very much focused on very ethereal things, the painting of atmosphere, which is fantastic. But the California Impressionists brought it back a little bit to the idea of painting light on things, light on objects, and how light affects all the different layers of atmosphere. And I really was able to kind of key into that early on. This is right out of college, and it made Impressionism a lot more accessible for me mentally. So I would like to talk about that and invite you to, maybe find one or two of your favorite Impressionist painters. You could even do a master's copy if you wanted. But what I would rather, I think, is looking at some of your favorite Impressionists and finding some reference. Again, you can use one of mine, you can use anything you'd like, and we will do an Impressionist painting. I find that with the Impressionist paintings, oftentimes more color is definitely useful. A lot of Impressionists, especially Monet and a number of others, their paintings were often more about color than they were about values, lights and darks. And so that's going to be a fun departure, where our first painting will really deal with lights and darks in a limited palette. Our second painting will be kind of a combination. And then our third painting will be much more about color. And what I'm hoping too is by the third painting, we're beginning to get comfortable with our brushes. We're going to get comfortable, and this is going to be hard for a lot of you guys. I've painted with a lot of you guys in person, and you already probably know what I'm going to say. And that's, I want you to use some paint on our Impressionist painting. That means squeezing out some paint onto your palette. It is always amazing to me how little paint students want to put on their palette. If it helps, keep this in mind, paint like you're rich. And if that's not helpful, the thing I like to remind myself is the most expensive paint I own are the tubes I never use. So let's use some paint, rejoice in your empty paint tubes. They're like a little trophy unto themselves of bravery and commitment. And we're going to learn in the Impressionist paintings about more of an alla prima style, more of how to paint wet into wet. And it's going to be a lot about loading up the brush and learning about how the pressure we use affects how we apply the paint. So many of us want to put down one coat, let it dry, which works, and it is definitely a fine way to work in oil paints. But what I want to show you guys is that no, you can just add paint all day long if you use your pressure. Okay, give me one quick second here. My first challenge to you guys, and I'll see where's my, is I am going to challenge all of you. If you got a paintbrush nearby, grab it. Hold up your paintbrush, please. All right, this is like Simon Says. I'm going to show you one thing and then say that you're all doing it wrong. So this is how we hold a pencil. Okay? This is not how we hold a paintbrush, at least in my class. There are times when we hold our paintbrush like this, but they are rare and far and in between. How we are going to hold our paintbrush in my class is like this. Okay? What I want you to think of if you're trying to figure out the grip is a conductor. I can step back a little bit so you can see. Like a conductor, we are going to be the conductors of our paintings, okay? Has anybody never hold their brush like this before? Go ahead, be brave. All right, it is tough to get used to. It is you're gonna have to, since I'm not there, you're gonna have to constantly just walk around and slap yourself on the hand for me because I can't do it. And you're gonna flip it around really quickly. And what this allows for, and I'll show it when I get to the canvas, is a lot more mark making. And what it also allows for is our brush innately has a, almost, put it against the light, a calligraphic tip, unless you're using one of those ones that's literally the sharp ones pointed like a pencil. But even that has so many marks that it can make. Okay, this, when you're holding it like a pencil, you tend to make the same mark with the same pressure over and over and over. Very rarely are we even turning the brush so that I'm making a thin mark, a thick mark, you know. So by changing this, it's very easy for us to change how we are applying to the canvas. Also, it allows for you to change sideways to the canvas. So if the canvas is right here, my brush now is dragging along it. I can scrub. I can change my pressure instantly. And it innately leads to all of that. Our brush wants to make hundreds of different marks. Okay? We are holding our brush back when we hold it like this, and we are not letting it live up to its potential. Your brushes have a lot more potential than we have been allowing them. And I know that this will be very, very difficult for some of us. Okay, so it's just going to be a slow, constant reminder of let's try that. Mike doesn't care too much if I make beautiful paintings every time. He would rather that I'm learning some new things. That's why I'm paying him all these, you know, paying him so much, is that I'm learning, I'm trying out new stuff. And this is lesson 1, lesson 2, lesson 3 is doing this. And today's abstract paintings
Mike,
are gonna be a great example of that. Yeah.
could you hold the brush up again, but not move? I want to take a photo of the screen.
All right, let me put it up. Okay. So for some of us, did you get a photo? Some of us, you're going to find yourself choking up. And that's another thing, is when painters paint like a pencil. I've got it in reverse, so it's really weird for me to figure out where I am on the screen. A lot of people, when they're holding their brush like a pencil, will really choke up on it. They'll, end up getting paint on their fingertips because they're almost touching the ferrules, the hairs there. As you get a little more comfortable, maybe you hold your brush back a little further. As you get more comfortable, hopefully, gosh, you're holding it way back here. But I'm just gonna go ahead and ask that you're holding it kind of lightly and kind of far back. It's also gonna make it so you're further back from your painting. You're gonna be able to see your whole surface a little easier. For those of you that are plein air or hoping to be plein air painters, holding it back here with an arm allows us to see the subject. If you're painting from models, it allows us to see the subject. If you're painting from a still life, it allows you to see the subject and your canvas at the same time. If you're up here choked up, you're looking at your canvas right here, and then you look around your canvas, check out what the model's doing. Hopefully she hasn't moved too much. Back over here. And in that split second of time, you've lost quite a lot of information. Doesn't seem like it, but you really have. If you're able to stand back, sit back, and look at both things, even if it's just a reference taped to your wall or your monitor or whatever it is amazing how that will really benefit you. And again, that comes from holding it back here. I made it through art college with nobody, as far as I can remember, ever telling me how to hold a paintbrush. I remember the day I learned how to hold a paintbrush by literally just watching another artist that I admired and saying, well, that's crazy. And then when he told me, no, that's how you hold a paintbrush. You're holding it like a pencil. I literally was like, I should call my school and ask for all my money back. I can't believe I made it through art school without learning how to hold a paintbrush. They probably wouldn't have given me my money back. Anyways, let's head over to the easel, shall we? I'm going to change views here. Let me see if I can also pin it. Okay, am I pinned? Are you guys seeing it big for me? Great. I'm going to once again mute everybody just so I know that we're all muted. If you would like to speak during it, you can just simply press the space bar, and you're always welcome to just unmute yourself. We just ask that you remute again, just so that the scenes are not taken away. All right, let me know if you have a hard time hearing me. I found that just one big mic in the studio is better than my lapel mic. Now I'm over here. Everybody can hear me okay?
Yes.
Fantastic, thank you. I can change my camera angle slightly, but not a whole lot due to the length of the cord that has to connect to my computer. You can see this morning, I very quickly just did a white to black value scale with no edges in between. I also did a Chroma Scale from, this is a cadmium yellow light to a cadmium red medium. I went ahead and added a little bit of quinacridone red and went over to a French ultramarine blue. In this section, it got so dark that I went ahead and added just a little white so that we could in fact see the purple. Otherwise, it's such a dark, dark purple that it's hard to see. But basically, it's just a slow transition. If this kept going or went in a circle, it would have, the blue and the yellow would make a green, and we would have our, please refocus. That is the one hard thing is when I put my arm in the way, it will tend to lose focus for a bit. So I may change it a little bit more to angle. Hopefully that's okay for everybody. Let me grab my notes real quick. So this was a white piece of paper. I gessoed it black, put some blue tape over it, and split it into fourths. Unfortunately, I've got a little bit extra space, so hopefully that doesn't look stupid at the end. And then I marked each one of these boxes just very lightly with a couple dots to show the halfway mark there. So what I'm going to do is each one of these squares on the top 4 squares is going to be half white. And half black. You can use a pre-mixed black. I've got, what do I have? Ivory black, I believe. Yep. Ivory black that I'll be using for this exercise. But if you're, you know, not into black, you can just make a dark color by simply mixing your 3 primaries. For me, that would be the French Ultramarine, my Cad Red medium with just a touch of lemon yellow will make a beautiful, really almost black. Or one of my very favorite dark colors that I like to mix often, because I don't have black on my palette that much. I'm not against using black on my palette. I just find that I get a little bit lazy sometimes and just use black to darken everything. All right, so I've got 4 half white squares. On the other side, like I said, I'm going to do black. I'm just going to go ahead and grab a clean brush so that I'm not spending half the class cleaning them. And I'm just going to paint them. I'm going to try to get a nice firm line on this first one. All right. My second one's I'm not going to worry quite as much about my edge between my black and my white. Third one, I'm not going to take my black all the way up to the white. I'm going to leave just a little bit of space there. And on my fourth one, I'm in fact going to leave a big space in between. All right. After I remove the tape, I'm going to go back and I'm going to label this as hard edge, firm edge, soft edge, and merged or lost edge. I think we can just go with lost edge. I was taught to call it a merged edge, but I don't really hear anybody else ever using that terminology. So we're going to go with lost edge. Okay, so for my first square, I'm already done. I wanted just a super stark, super crisp line. It's so obvious. In a painting, our eye is going to be drawn towards this so fast, and it'd be hard to look away. So hard edges really, really attract the eye. So that can be super useful or super dangerous if you use them wrong. So that's the cool thing. Each one of these edges that we're going to be talking about has innate strength and innate weaknesses. So when used correctly, amazing. When used incorrectly, can be really damaging to our paintings. So yeah, what we're going to be talking about is the importance of edges, how they make the painting, and how we can use them to control the viewer. The eye is attracted to contrast. Okay, that is probably our most important lesson for today besides how to hold a paintbrush. The eye is attracted to contrast. Okay. So what I'm going to do in this next one is I'm going to go ahead and take some black, some white, and I'm going to mix up a nice mid gray. And I'm just going to slide that down in the middle. All right. The next one, I'll grab that gray, slide it down the middle. But what I'm going to do now is on the light side, cleaning my brush a little bit here, just using paper towels, pinching the extra paint off and pulling it in between. I go through a lot of paper towels. I promise I like trees, but I like clean paintbrushes even more. And then I'm going to soften this edge between the gray and the white. I'm going to clean my brush, and I'm going to soften my edge between my black and my gray. By simply lightly, with light pressure, pulling down on the brush. Now on a lost edge, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my black paint, just a little bit of it. I'm going to bring it over to the white side. I'm going to take it almost to the edge. So there's just a little bit of pure white showing. And then I'm going to drag it back and do the inverse on the other side, leaving just a little bit of black. And you can just kind of go back and forth with it as you see fit. But this is, I'm trying to get it to a lost edge, where your eye really doesn't know where one color starts, or one value in this instance, where one value starts and one value ends. Now I know for you guys, this is pretty obvious, but again, it's something that's underutilized. And in painting, it's rarely little tricks and gimmicks and special things that we need to remember to make our paintings better. It's almost always back to the basics. It's one of the reasons I just love painting, because I'm always working on all of these things that I'm teaching. I'm never done working on design and composition. I'm never done learning about color. And now I'm never done experimenting with and playing and trying to learn how to utilize edges better in my paintings. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and soften this one just a touch more. It's got a pretty stark transition. Maybe I will soften this one more step over, just so it's a little more obvious. All right, so I'm going to move the camera slightly so we can see the edge quality a little better. Maybe zoom in a little bit there. So if we can kind of picture space in between them, this is our hard edge, very, very crisp, almost like the yin and yang, right? Dark, light, our eye just wants to follow right along it. On over here, I'm just going to soften that just one more touch. Over here we have the firm edge. So the edge is still quite obvious. You know, we say, okay, it's white, oh, a little bit gray, now it's black. The transition is pretty quick. What I would think of this kind of edge quality, maybe along like shrubbery. Things that might have kind of a diffused edge, maybe where grasses and paths meet, different things like that. This could be maybe much more structural. And then we have over here, we've got our soft edge. This may be kind of like within the shrub. We may have the shadow side and the light side with the transition in between or what have you. And then over here, we've got our lost edge, where really, again, we just can't tell where one begins and the other ends. This is great on like hazy horizon lines, or maybe from foreground back to background on our, on our flat planes. Use this a lot in water. Lots and lots of uses. Let's also, if we think about fabrics, right? All three of these edge qualities can be seen within a draped dress or a draped curtain a lot of times. And it's really important that we learn to utilize the different edge quality, not only to mimic and to capture what it is we're trying to paint, but also to control how the viewer sees and how their eye moves through the painting. So as a general rule, when we paint this kind of edge quality, we are telling the audience, we are telling our viewers, this is important. This is, you know, these are two very different objects. Follow your eye along here. Often in portraits, we have some of this innately because of the contrast within the eye compared to the rest of the face, or maybe the shadows on the nose will be a little crisper. This is saying, you know what, it's important. Maybe this is a better example of like the shadow along the nose or under the lips. This is important, but you know, not as important as over here. Our eye still wants to zoom right along it. Over here, the eye just kind of floats a little bit back and forth, right? It just kind of meandering. We're not controlling the eye as much. And on Lost Edge, our eye just kind of goes, oh, this isn't important. It just skims through it. It doesn't generally find a line and follow it. When you go back and look at landscape paintings, and even a lot of mine, I hope, you will see how artists use these different line qualities. Okay, so I think that edge in value is pretty obvious, right? Any questions so far, you guys? All right, now I want to do edge in color, or building edges using hue and intensity, or hue meaning color, and intensity is the intensity of the color, like how bright a yellow is it. So let's start with just obvious, just kind of like we did here, a hard edge. I'm just going to go ahead and, oops, I want to grab cadmium yellow. My yellow that I have on the palette, I'm going to zoom back out, is from last night's glazing demo. So most of my colors on my palette were pretty transparent. So I did go ahead and add some cadmium yellow because of the fact that I'm painting over this black surface. If you use a transparent yellow, it will turn greenish because of that black showing through the yellow. So I'm using a cadmium yellow, which is very opaque. And I'm just going to do the same thing like I did up above with the white. Pop quiz, what is the opposite color of yellow? Think color wheel.
Violet.
Yeah, nice job. So I'm going to grab a clean brush because I want to use all my paintbrushes today. And let's mix up a violet. Let's go to our quinacridone red. And normally I would use my French ultramarine, but you know what? One of my favorite combinations of color is the quinacridone red, which is what I use instead of an alizarin. It's just a slightly more vibrant and keeps its strength longer. It doesn't die down when I mix it. And I'm going to mix that with manganese. So for some of you, maybe you're not too familiar with manganese, but manganese is a color that I'm using instead of cerulean, which I used for a long time. And it's the same reason I like the quinacridone, is it keeps its tinting strength up a lot longer than cerulean. Cerulean wants to gray down very quickly, but I can use manganese and make it stay brighter longer, and it's still pretty easy to kill, to knock down. So I'm going to mix those two. And I'm just going to go ahead and let it stay pretty dark. Normally I might add a little white to it, just to lighten it up. Oops, too much red. So I did mix a little bit of French ultramarine just because I want it to be a little darker. And I'm going to put that down here next to my purple. It's going to appear black. Oh man, okay, I get to add a little bit of white, otherwise it just really does appear black. But yeah, watch what happens when I add white to this color. Just really comes alive. Beautiful, kind of a purple magenta. So let's take that over here.
So Michael, is there a reason you're using a black background rather than a white background?
Not really, besides it's gonna look cool when I pull all that blue tape off. And the last time I did this, I did it on black. So no, white's totally fine. Yeah, you don't need to go through any extra steps to make it on black. And maybe white would have been better for this, because I actually haven't done a chroma or a color edge chart before, so maybe that would have been better for this exercise actually. So
Hey,
I'm hoping
Michael,
you guys will experiment. And
can you make, Michael?
Yeah.
Is there something I can do here to make your square bigger?
Yeah, go to your view up in the right corner. And I should be pinned, so I should be the big view if you go to speaker view.
Thank you.
Yeah, so does everybody else have me, or at least my painting nice and big on there?
Yes.
Okay, great. So we have a very strong, just like the one up above, very strong line here. Now, I want this one to still be a nice, strong, contrasting line, but I want it to be less. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my quinacridone red, and I'm going to put that on the dark side over here. So what I'm going to slightly do is I'm also bringing my colors a little closer on the color wheel. Now I'm going to go back to my yellow that I used just a bit ago. Clean that brush a little bit here. And I'm thinking about the transition that I have in the value above it. So it's going to be just a little bit softer, a little bit less of a gradient. Anybody want to guess what that color is going to be?
Orange.
Yeah, nice. So I'll just mix a little bit of my cat, a little bit of my, I'm going to bring my orange down the middle. All right, I'm going to zoom in there. And even though it's still just a stripe of orange, do you see how this is such a strong contrast? And our eye just wants to zoom right along. But over here, there's this transition color in between them. And how our eye just, even though again, it's just three stripes of color, yellow, orange, red, it's just feels more comfortable, right? It feels softer, even though the transition is still quite strong. If you guys are fans of John Singer Sargent's paintings, it is amazing to go and observe how often he does this, where two edges meet, he introduces a third color. And it is genius, and it is beautiful, and it just flows so naturally. For a lot of us, we just want to do our edge quality like this, where we just kind of blend in between them. But I want you guys to begin to experiment and to begin to think about, especially when we get to the Impressionist paintings, of how can I introduce a third or maybe a fourth and a fifth color in between them. So let's try that. That's what we're going to do on our next one. So once again, I'm going to start with my yellow. It's a little bit contaminated now, so it's going to be kind of a slightly orangey yellow. This gesso is so thirsty, it's a slow drag, meaning the paint doesn't just want to slide across. I'm really having to kind of push it down. Okay, now I'm going to do a what color should we take it to? Blue maybe? And do a green in between? Just so we have lots of color on there. So I'm gonna take it to, let's get our, go to our manganese blue because it's so pretty. So I'm putting manganese blue on the other side. Now in between it, I'm gonna think about 3, 4 different colors I can put. So I can add a little yellow to that. Yeah, just a touch of paint thinner. I just added just a drop of paint thinner to the corner of my brush. I don't want a sloppy paint. I just want to speed it up just a little bit. I'm going to do it one more time. If your paint's really dragging, but I want you guys to start really, when you're mixing paint thinner into your paint, think about how much you're putting in. We're not trying to make paint. We're not trying to paint in watercolors. We're just loosening up the paint ever so slightly. So I'm going to go ahead and add that green. Let's add more yellow to that. Add another drop. It's my cadmium yellow is very slow, I guess. Maybe that's the color. I'm hoping this isn't too obvious, or I'm hoping I'm making this interesting enough. I definitely understand that, like, that this is quite rudimentary for a lot of us, but I hope that by doing this exercise that it'll just kind of cement it into our brains that little bit more. All right, so there we have a soft transition. Maybe the green to the blue, I could do one more soft edge, but it's still really nice. I like it. And then what color don't we have up there? I'm just going to do yellow to orange. So yellow on this side. And then I'm going to make a nice orange. I'm going to use Indian yellow, which I've got some of my cadmium yellow mixed in, and a little bit of my cad red medium, a little more of the yellow. So I'm making just a nice hot yellow. Probably need a little more cadmium colors just because it can be quite transparent. Otherwise, Indian yellow is a very transparent color. So as you are painting, a great idea is to start observing on the backs of your tube. Does it say transparent, semi-transparent, opaque, or semi-opaque? And really observing how that affects our painting. Hopefully I got a clean brush there.
The red that you used in the middle, is that quinacridone?
It is. On this far end is a quinacridone red. Yeah, good call. And this one is our lost edge. So my yellow becomes an orange, hopefully somewhat imperceptibly, just kind of all of a sudden it is. Orange is yellow or yellow is orange.
So Michael, you're starting on the two far ends, the far right, far left, with the yellow and the orange, with colors that are basically the same intensity. Is that right?
That is right. Yeah, really good call. That's true. So that is one of our, so when we are dealing with chromatic edges or edges using color, our three tools are the hue, which is basically what I think of when I think of hue, is just what's the name? Is it yellow? Is it red? Is it orange? Hue, just kind of the naming of the color. We also have the value. So we've got a dark color in this purple and a light color in this yellow, right? I kind of went as far apart on my values as I could on my colors. Or we can go almost really close over here with these oranges. Maybe this yellow would in fact have gone to a pink. Maybe somebody wants to experiment with that. You know, it doesn't have to be pure colors like I've been using. It could be subtle colors. I was actually even thinking about doing it with a two different grays. Gamblin has a Portland gray cool and a Portland gray warm that I thought would be an interesting one to experiment with, and maybe I still will. Maybe I'll do some of that into the abstract paintings. So yeah, where we have closer values, it's much easier to create a lost edge. Over here, with these two very different values in the color, it would be much more difficult to create a very lost edge. So yeah, thank you for noticing that. That's great. So we have the hue or the color, value, meaning the light and darkness of the color. We have the intensity of the color. That's where I thought maybe it'd be fun to go from an intense color to a gray color, or from, you know, one gray to another gray. And then within that, we also can have temperature, where we have like the cool greens going over to slightly warmer yellows, the cooler purples over towards the warm yellows. Even though I am using lemon yellow, so it's pretty cool. So does that make sense? So we have a lot of tools when we're dealing with edges within color. We've got hue, value, intensity, and temperature. Okay. Oh, let's do our quick reveal. Maybe let's just see if it was worth doing black at all here. It's my favorite part of painting, I think. Yeah, it makes nice edges. I also like to write on the black with white pens. I think that always looks nice, or silver pencils. Trying to pull slowly enough that I don't tear my paper. I'm gonna go ahead and take it out of the scene for a second because you guys don't need to watch the whole unwrapping. Yeah, I think paper towels and blue tape are the two companies I should be investing in. I go through a lot of blue tape when I paint. All right, last piece of blue tape. Just throw it on the back real quick so it can stay up there on the palette. Now, maybe I'll just hold it up. And I'll take a photo of this to show. So anyways, kind of pretty. Oh, you gotta zoom back out. There we go. That's what I ended up with. So you can see the grayscale at the top, which is always a nice, useful tool to check your paintings against. I've got the chroma value just across the top using pure colors besides a tiny bit of white into my purples. And then I've got hard edge, firm edge, soft edge, lost edge. The same thing here, hard edge, firm edge, soft edge, lost edge. All right. So this is up to you, whether or not you think this will be something useful for you to keep in your studio or not. It's up to you how much you care if it looks pretty. But there we go. Let me move that out of the way. You guys ready for a quick 5-minute break? get some more, hot tea. Because I'm going to transfer back over to the computer and we are going to look at some references or examples of how artists have used that. So quick vote, keep going, or do you guys want a 5-minute break?
5-minute break.
5 minutes.
All right.
5 minute.
Guys at 10:33. Is that right? Yeah. Yep, 10:33. Use this time to clean a couple brushes here. Otherwise, I'll burn through all my brushes really fast. So for anybody that's curious, this is just kind of while we're waiting here. Again, what I do is right out of the scene, I have my paint thinner and a bucket with that in it. And so when you see me kind of dipping my arm off to the right side, that's what I'm doing. I'm just dipping my paint into there, or my brush. What I typically do is if I have, let's just start with a really messy brush here. So let's just pretend I just painted with my quinacridone red, and I've got quite a bit of paint on there, and I want to clean it before the next color. Is first thing I do is squeeze that paint off as much as possible, just using my paper towel. Then I dip it in. On the bottom of that paint thinner is a little bit of a screen, which I can just lightly dab the brush against, and then I will pull it across the edge of the paint thinner so the drips go down, and I will just squeeze it again, and I'm almost clean already. And then one more time will generally get out my colors. There are times when I'm dealing with high contrast or really warms and cools, and I will use different paint brushes for that. But there's a lot of paintings I do where I will do almost one brush for most of the painting. So I'm just going to quickly clean all these brushes really fast. I got one more minute, just so I'm not wasting time when we get back to painting here. If you know my paintings, you know my colors aren't really clean. I kind of like that. I kind of like the earth tones and the grays that exist inside of the color wheel. And so I don't worry about having a perfectly clean paintbrush that often. Usually clean enough is clean enough. But if you are having a hard time in your paintings and your colors are just getting too soft, too mushy, you're making browns and grays and too many greens where they're not wanted, it's often just because you're not cleaning your brush. And in fact, you saw how dirty my paint thinner water was. I should have cleaned that. And what I would do is pour that paint thinner out into a mason jar, put the lid on, and pour new paint thinner, or maybe from one of my other mason jars that's been sitting, because what will happen is the pigment in the paint thinner will settle to the bottom, and I can continue to reuse my paint thinner over and over and over. I almost never pour dirty paint thinner out. It just kind of slowly evaporates, unfortunately. So keep, have a nice fan, or keep an airflow going in your studio. But I almost never have to pour paint thinner out. If you watched the demonstration last night, you notice I use a lot of shop brushes. A huge, probably about a half of the brushes that I have in my collection are brushes I buy from the hardware store. It's funny, if you buy a brush like this, which you can buy at the art store or at the hardware store, it'll be about 1/3 the price at the hardware store. Most supplies, if you buy them at the hardware store, including your masonite boards or any surfaces that you're going to paint on, are going to be far cheaper at the supply store. In fact, I even have friends who use professional strength paint thinner. I cannot use that stuff. The fumes destroy me, and I don't like the smell of it at all. So I use Gamsol, which is Gamblin's paint thinner. It's definitely more expensive, but I find it to be much better for my studio environment. One of you guys in the last class was talking about Lavender Spike Oil. I'm not sure which one of you, but I have found that 1 or 2 capfuls, because this stuff is pretty spendy, into my paint thinner, and my studio smells like lavender. It's wonderful. Even all my brushes have kind of a lavender smell to it. It's a very, very, very strong paint thinner. So I found that I can mix it with the Gamsol, and it's not quite as strong, and it's a really nice smell. And just a cap or two filled, it's been, I can still smell it after about 2 weeks in my paint thinner. So that is a new thing I'm experimenting with because I love the smell of lavender. And don't love the smell of paint thinner. I'm coming back over to my computer. All right, hi everybody. Everybody's hopefully back. And I want to do share screen again. And now we're gonna go over to my, let me bring up my Photoshop. We're gonna go over to Photoshop, and we're gonna very quickly just look at a number of paintings and how they are using edge quality. The first one, oops, share screen. All right, everybody see my Photoshop here? I'm using probably one of the world's oldest Photoshop applications still. I don't use Photoshop too much to make finished art, but I do use it a lot to manipulate my photos and to combine things. So I've never upgraded it. Now it's a pay per month, which I'll probably end up doing because my daughter uses Photoshop a lot. But anyways, I wanted to quickly, get this guy fitting on screen so he's a lot bigger. Kind of a blurry photo a little bit. This is an artist named Zhao Ming, who does tons and tons of these draped figures. Everybody seeing that okay? Now, just from what we just did there with the hard, soft, and lost edges, you can really see how he is manipulating the viewer, how he is controlling our subconscious mind through his use of edge quality. Because it's a fairly chromatic picture, right? It's primarily in the warm sepia tones. There's kind of a gray green in there just a little bit, but primarily it's very warm sepia colors. And grab a little brush to draw on there with. Now, what I want you guys to begin to do throughout this class is I want you to begin to look at art. Let's see how big a mark that makes. Huge, don't want that big. All right. I want us to begin to look at paintings in slightly different ways. What I want us to do first is go, where does our eye go to first? Okay. As we begin to analyze that, we will begin to say, okay, how did he get us to go there first? All right, go ahead, and anybody, where does our eye go to first on this painting? If you want to look away or close your eyes for a second, that's great. Okay, so where does our eye go to first on this painting? Anybody?
The brightest.
The brightest, so kind of right here on the knee. Is that what you're thinking?
I think that whole arm to the knee,
This whole area here?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For me, it's the
Including the
shoulder face where the sharp edges are, and the contrast is very high.
Right. I would agree with all three of those. My initial instinct.
That's where I went, to the neck.
Yeah, my initial instinct was here, but if I think about, oh, where's the strongest contrast? You're right. It's probably between the knee and the shadow side of the belly or underneath the arm. But either way, what he's done, right, is he's created this beautiful triangle of interest. Our eye sees all this stuff down in the bottom and around, but it's very secondary, and our eye just skims beyond it. And I would agree that the arm is very important and the knee is very important, but all those things lead us through the lines that he's created to the face. But the face is really in shadow and not too interesting. So it's just the silhouette of the face. And then he has that beautiful little element of detail in the hair right there. That's kind of our payoff. He's got a couple different little payoff elements. He's got the bracelet there, you know, the detail kind of in the clothing on there, on the knee. So he's got a couple different payoff areas. Let's start over again. Now let's look for the different edges. All right, so we have hard edge. We've got one spot here, one spot here, kind of in this area. And then in this area, even though the background isn't quite as bright as on the knee, right? So that is kind of his focal area, right? And he's manipulating us, having us skim along these lines. That arm line is so nice. But what happens back here, right? It is just a slow transition from the warm to the cool to the dark and he never even describes what's going on with this arm or this side of the body, really. It just blends off. The same thing is happening within the dress itself. The fabric that she's sitting on just blends away. The background over here just blends away. The colors, you know, there's some transitioning into color. If we change this, oops, sorry, change this to a black and white, which I always suggest you do with your references, is having a black and white reference and a color reference. Right? Look at those colors on the wall now. Because the values are so close, they almost disappear, right? You can't even see where one thing begins and another thing ends back here. And the ones down here, he's doing a more graded, brushy transition from the lights here to here, to here, to here, to here, right? You can see those transitions slowly going. Same thing in this area. So wherever he has these really subtle, gradual transitions, what's he telling us? Not that important. Look here, there's some information, but don't stay here. Don't follow along these lines. These lines aren't as important. In fact, even look at the offside of the arm, right? That arm probably goes all the way to here, but he has the value. Let's go back one more. The value is exactly the same. And he just trusts us as viewers that we know that the woman's arm isn't just this shadow. He doesn't have a line outlining this side of the arm. He just knows, he trusts that we know and will fill in that information. He doesn't tell us there's an arm back here. He just knows and trusts us. It's a super important lesson to learn to trust your viewer and to let them fill in the information. All right, let's knock that one down. Bring up one of my very, very favorite painters. At least I believe this is. I believe this is Joaquin Sorolla. Bring that up. And I've got a lot of references here. I'm not going to go through all of them. This one's much more crisp and clear. There's a lot more implied detail. And that's another thing we're going to be talking about is implied detail. A lot of things that are happening in here, our brain is just filling in. So really quickly, where does our eye go first? For me,
To her face.
to her face. See, for me, I think it's this mark right here between these lights and these darks. And then that leads us into the space. Then her face, what's she looking at? And then we have all these nice lines that kind of want to keep us within the space, don't they? This painting just kind of keeps us moving around really nicely. Let's see if I can. All right, now looking at lost edges, we know that there's grapes in here, but he doesn't overplay. He doesn't overplay the lights and the darks within them. He lets them basically blend into the background because he's given us enough of the grapes up here. Joaquin Sorolla is a master, and same with John Singer Sargent, a master of showing just a couple elements and letting our brains fill in this. It would be, I mean, I would even be so tempted to add more highlights into these grapes just to make them more obvious. But by allowing that, it's more restful. He keeps the focus where he wants it, and he lets our eyes skim around the rest of it. He also does this really neat thing with the, I don't know why the kid has no pants on. It's a little bit of a dangerous pose for that lady holding a baby, naked baby butt up like that. But I love the black shoes. I think those are so funny, silhouetted there against the lights. Then look what he does over here. He's got, I think, maybe some grapes back there that are silhouetting the baby's belly, the shirt there a little bit. So much neat stuff. Look at the red, just a little bit of interest there in her hair against the dark. So there he's got, you know, color contrast. Here we have value contrast, and all these just beautiful things going on in this painting. So I urge you again, as you're looking at paintings, to begin to observe how are they doing what they're doing. All right, so I thought this was a kind of a rough painting by Richard Schmidt, but I believe now that it's actually Sherry Schmidt's painting, his wife. So thought that was kind of cool. It's a little different, but you can definitely see the influence they've had on each other in their work. Thought I should bring in some landscapes. So this one, where is our focal point? Where does our eye want to go to first? What's the highest contrast?
The path?
The path, you think?
The roof.
Yeah, I think the roof. You got these really, and this tree, I kind of think it's definitely in this space because you got the dark next to the light. You've got dark next to light. You got crisp, sharp edges. In the path, yes. And the Schmidts, I would have just said Richard Schmidt, but now that we know Sherry's painting beautiful paintings as well, they are masters of leading the eye in without overly describing the path or the way they want us to come in. Because look at the path. We have this real strong contrast, which our eye goes to, and then our eye flows back. But on the same area of that path, we have lost edges, or soft edges, I should say. And the path goes back and forth between hard edge, soft edge, lost edge, all the way back. But our eye just quickly, because if it was overly described and all firm, our eye would really want to go and stay there. But by having all these different types of edge quality, our eye just kind of skims along it. And then look at the edge quality within all these grasses in here, right? There's a lot of things going on, but they're, for the most part, very implied. He doesn't, or she doesn't, want to keep us in these areas too much. So they get us kind of in, through. The Schmidts, Richard Schmidt, when you look at his work, he has huge passages of his painting, often in the foreground, which is an interesting concept, that allow the viewer just to go flying through it and not pay attention. Richard Schmidt used to joke, unfortunately, Richard Schmidt died 2 days ago. I don't know if you guys heard that. He was a true American treasure. I think his brushwork is very dry and kind of crisp. I don't know if crisp is the right word, but it has a very dry feel to it that I don't love so much for my own work, but I sure do admire his work and Sherry's work. But what I was going to say is, look at all these colors and all these transitions. There's a lot of information. It's beautifully rendered, or beautifully not rendered, maybe is a better way to say it, and allows the eye to go up here to where all the little shapes are, these little triangle shapes. And one of my favorite elements in it is, look at the roof against the sky. What's happening there? Lost edges, right? They're barely described at all. She didn't feel like she needed to draw a line and tell us. She just knew that we would know that there was a roof there by, you know, this shadow and this shadow being cut off, that we would fill that information in. She trusts the viewers. And I promise you that people like to help you in your painting. They like to be involved. If you tell them everything, it's boring. Okay, let the viewers do some of the work. They want to be involved. There's a mental reward system that gets activated when they get involved. So any other comments on this one? Liked it so much, I did it twice. Anybody know who this artist is? Besides, it says it right on the top. This is a friend of mine, a painter I get to go out with quite a bit, Ramona Youngquist. I think we own about 3 of her paintings. She lives in the Dundee area and does a lot of these very urban, sunlit farms and lots and lots of white houses. It's kind of her thing. But I just think she is the master again of just the right amount of information. Look at the path. Look how it gets lost here. Look at the bottoms of these plants here. Lost path over here. Look at these lost hills all through back here. And then look at her lost or very soft edges all throughout her clouds, right? So all that area that is outside of this, all of that big area there, which is what, 4/5 of the painting? She's telling you some information that's helping tell the story, but the diva, the main character, the main lady on stage, is over here. Funny, it's not in a real opportune spot as far as design, but she's so good that she lets us push the boundaries. And what she does is she asks us to travel up the road, just like we saw with Sherry Schmidt's painting. And then the payoff, the place where our eye really is drawn to, here, maybe some in the tops of here. And want you to see this as far as design elements, is she controls us by making us hit this bush. Otherwise our eye would just go flying off, right? But by putting this bush and by having the value so close between the shadow side of this bush and the bush back here, our eye kind of gets contained. That's a lot of lines I got going on there. And then she also has that little bush over here. So our eye kind of goes flying back, gets kind of contained. This area, this area back here, look at that. That's a beautiful painting, the whole thing. She could contain us in that. So all of the rest of that information is supporting cast. It's just telling the story. And then the payoff for us traveling back there is this beautiful contrasts of lights and darks, warms and cools. And then she gives us a couple hints. I'm going to zoom back out so that our eye, after we've had our just fill of all this awesomeness, then begins to travel along that line of light, then up this line of shadow to just a nice little bonus element back there. We'll travel along there. You get some nice little white guys back there. And then we're zooming, but look at what she did. She brought in some line elements that keep us in the space again. Who looked at this and thought, wow, that's pretty simple in the beginning? She's so smart and so clever how she uses these. Let's go ahead and
What's her name?
Ramona, Romona Youngquist, Younquist. She has so many beautiful paintings. She definitely has her, I don't want to say formula because that makes it sound a little fake, but it's so funny. We go painting quite a bit together, and it is so funny. A white house will just magically appear wherever we're painting. She literally, either if she gets to pick where we're going to somewhere with a white house, a white farmhouse. And if it's not there, she adds it. It is the funniest thing ever. And it's so funny. I bet you this location, because she lives in Dundee, I bet you these are all just vineyards. She's surrounded by vineyards. She lives on a vineyard, and I've never seen her paint a vineyard. She just uses them as design elements. She loves the rolling hills and everything else. And she's not afraid. Like, these fields could be freshly tilled and all brown and, you know, whatever else. She doesn't care. She's going to go in and use her artistic element. Maybe these red flowers actually only exist on one bush. She's going to bring those in. You can see too, I mean, these are red flowers on a bush, and now these are red flowers on a grass. You know, this doesn't make sense that they would be the same type color flowers on the grass and on the plants. She doesn't care. She's just using these elements. She's wonderful with a palette knife. And then she'll go ahead and so palette knife down here for texture, palette knife into the focal area for texture. And then up here, she gets really nice and soft and brushy and lets her clouds be clouds. She'll brush out the tops of her hills so that they have a softer edge quality. We'll recede back into space. Look at all the edges back here, much softer. So all of the hard edges in this painting exist within that strange hot dog shape. I just drew a pickle, I think that's a pickle. And then everything beyond that has got soft edges, doesn't it? Oh, I wanted to, let's look at it really quickly in black and white. See if it still holds up. It's a great way to test your painting. Still has the same lead in. We lose the red flowers, but still has the same lead in. Our eye still wants to kind of travel along. This ray of light becomes a little less obvious. So maybe my eye, instead of doing the path that I showed earlier, now does this path. But it's still very nice. All right, now we're getting into some abstract paintings here. This is an abstract painter named Randall Tipton. I'm not sure if he's ever taught at OSA, but he's another Oregon artist, a gentleman I've been fortunate to paint with a couple times. And every time I run into him, we just have the greatest talks. He's so smart and it is so fun. He's so clever with what he's doing. This isn't not one of his most interesting paintings, but I just wanted to quickly show you this one. He's got this whole huge passage of just lost, you know, going from warms to warmer, browner reds to the cooler greens. And where does he really want our eye to go is obviously here. How does he keep our eye from shooting off the space? By creating kind of a dome. So he's controlling our eye. It's so simple, so beautiful. The only real interesting edges are here on the grasses against that shadow. I'm going to have another one of his come up in just a second, I think. But anyways, I thought that was really interesting. And I wanted to talk some about abstracting, doing some of our abstracts here. I unfortunately don't know the name of this artist. I just grabbed it off of Pinterest or somewhere. I don't even know. But I wanted to show you this artist almost uses no hard edges, at least in this painting. This could be closer to some of the very atmospheric paintings I like doing. I mean, look at the transition in there of, right? It's just so soft that our eye just skims across it from here to here to here. I just skims across it. Here he's got more, maybe it's a lady, I'm afraid I don't know, little harder edges, but our eye still, because there's no real hard edges, our eye still follows now the soft edges. If there was some soft edges or hard edges, our eye would not read these as clearly. But you see how any edge quality can create the sense of a line. But if he had a real, I mean, there's some kind of harder edges at the bank where the water and the land meet, just to kind of ground us a little bit. But anyways, I want to show you that and that compared to our man Franz Klein. Unfortunately, this is not a very good photo of his work, very blurry. But Franz Klein is an artist that took me a long time to like and respect. But boy, have I really learned a lot by looking at his work more. A good friend of mine, Anton Pavlenko, lent me a book of his, and he's just like, just look at it, just study it, and just see what he's doing with just black and white and the movement. And Franz Klein was almost driven mad by just painting black and white over and over and over. And I think this painting that we're looking at right now, I think it maybe just sold for $60 million. So, you know, if you only do black and white abstracts in this class, it may work out for you. But it was really interesting. And what's fun or interesting for us more representational painters is when we're looking through it is do the same thing. Where does our eye go? How does our eye travel? You know, this kind of area is kind of one of the more interesting ones. This is one of the few good angles. So my eye is drawn into this area, then it gets up here, and he doesn't necessarily have lost or soft edges, but he does break up the big thick brushwork where this one goes from black to white. Over here it goes black, kind of more to a gray, to kind of a light gray to a white. So it's just fun to see, where does my eye go quickly? Where does my eye spend more time? How is he controlling the eye? Interesting to see. I like this one more because probably it feels more landscape-like. I always gravitate towards things I have some kind of a connection with. And it's fun to think, what could he have been looking at? You know, was this a bridge? Was this a hill with trees, with a path? Who knows? I have no idea. But it's kind of interesting to start filling in some of that information. I'm going to suggest that you do one Franz Klein style painting as your as your sharp edge. So black and white. One of my favorite tools for painting Franz Klein like things is those little black sponge brushes. Are really fun because you can push them down, pull them up, turn them, get the big edge, the little edge. They can make really little marks. They're interesting little mark makers, but Franz Klein, everybody. All right, here's another one of Randall David Tipton's paintings. This one's a little more complicated. Look at the edge as it bleeds from the background, super warm to super cool, but he has this big transition between them. It takes his time with that transition. So even though that's really extreme, if you go from this color all the way up to this color, the amount of time that it takes in between the transition is immense. So it's a very, very much a lost edge. And then he's got these nice crisp edges. He's got the beautiful darks and lights. Let's go back to the beginning. Where does your eye go in this painting as you look at it? How does it travel? What is he doing to kind of keep us in this space? All these are things I want you to kind of be asking. So my eye just kind of does this line. Right? We're all probably going to be different, but that's kind of how my eye wants to travel across it. I find that this is probably my reward. And this is maybe where my eye really wants to go in it, you know, eventually, because that's the highest contrast. He's got these nice, interesting shapes in there. But Randall, just like the Sherry's painting earlier, has all these kind of seemingly mundane areas, but look at that. That's so beautiful with the different textures and different elements that he's introducing. I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't use like saran wrap crumpled up into a ball to pull paint back off. I have no idea how he did what he was doing. Or maybe he used a rubber spatula kind of tool to pull the paint back off and make these interesting marks. But anyways, I find his work really enthralling. Probably never work that I would ever do, but I really like it. This is David Lidbetter, who does some really interesting. And again, I didn't mean to go through so many. This is also a David Lidbetter. This one I thought had much softer edges, cooler. Look at this lost edge on the top trees with very few lines. This painting is all about these beautiful sharp lines and these little spots of color with just one band going across the back. He does just such nice, simple shapes. I find myself gravitating towards him. His images keep popping up on Pinterest for me, so Pinterest wants me to like him. Pinterest is one of my favorite places to go and just be inspired. It's just all images. This is one of my very favorite living impressionist painters right now. His name is Bato. His work is the quintessential lost and found. I mean, it's so simplistic, and at the same time, I find it to be so genius. I mean, this painting is all about right here, isn't it? It's just, that's everything. So 90% of this painting, all the area surrounding it, is in service to that. Look at this little tree back here he hid. You know, he doesn't care to put in that much information. And I love the different brush strokes he uses, to little tiny dabs of paint here, to getting bigger brush strokes out here, bigger areas of color, slower, more gradual transitions the further out he goes, so that our only real high contrast area is kind of in there again. Interesting, isn't it? I very much suggest Bato, B-A-T-O. He's got all sorts of different kinds of stuff. He's very experimental, little Russian guy. All right, this is the one that I put on the email. This is Anders Zorn, who's one of my favorite painters as well. I got a lot of favorite painters. I don't know if I get to call them favorites if you have so many. A lot of painters I really love. Zorn, we painted with the Zorn palette last class in the color class. He's famous for using red, black instead of blue, yellow ochre, and white as his colors. But this one is just such a good example of controlling the eye, such a strange, unbalanced design. It's such a strange painting, but I just really love it. I love the very strange brushwork that he just kind of throws in to add a little bit of interest into these areas, but it's not so much that it pulls us away. But remember, I was talking about the fabrics. Look at this lost edge in here between one value, two values, three values. And then he's got crisp, sharp lines here to lead us up the girl's back along here. And then we come back down. He's very much got this interesting triangle going on. Just such interesting design, really fun. So as you're looking at people's artwork, this is where your abstract work could come from. Because imagine, let me do control, go back to the beginning. Oops, sorry guys. I'm gonna go back and let's do this. I'm gonna create a new layer. Now I'm gonna grab a black brush. And I'm just gonna very quickly go over it with kind of how my eye is traveling. Okay, so I find that I've got this kind of introduction here, goes along that nice edge there, up to there. Got this fun edge here, this line here. And then after I've spent some time there, I start to appreciate the other brushwork that's going on. Look at that. That could be the beginning of an abstract painting, right, Mary? I'm excited to see what some of you students do, but there's just different ways to see how does the eye travel. You know, this is not a very interesting one because my line quality is all the same because I just used a strange brush, but if I changed up the edge quality maybe, started introducing some colors. It's a good way to kind of just to start finding abstraction. All right, last one, Kim Llordier, great pastelist. I just love this painting. I've been in love with this painting for a long time. I think she may have been one of my early influences, even though she's a silly chalk painter. Just kidding. But I really like her work. I sign up for her newsletter just because I'm excited by the colors and the interesting things that she does. I love seeing her new work. I love the transition from the, I gotta go back to a small brush. I'm on a giant brush here.
Her name again?
Kim, and then Llordier, L-O-R-D-I-E-R. I've been lucky to become friends with her over the years as well. Yeah, anyways, I just really like her work. She's a fun person as well. But I love the transition from the warms to the cools, the warms. Look at all the transitions within the warms up here, right? Yellow, pink, orange, even within the kind of more greeny gray areas, retains its warmth. Look at the transitions. In here, you've got the red, the greens, the darker grays. Let's get rid of those lines. Now, where does our eye go in this painting, do you think? For me, it just really wants to zoom right up into this kind of area up here. This is a good one as far as doing movement. It doesn't really have a single payoff element as per se, but a lot of the elements want to bring us, oops, here, don't they? She's got kind of a radiating design. All right, so you can see that everything's kind of slowly leading us up towards that. Even the lines that lead us here then get caught up and go here. So it's kind of a radiating design. I really love her hard and soft edges. Her darkest darks are retained basically for the foreground. So the shadow areas that are in the back get much cooler and lighter. Or just lighter, I guess. They're not very cool. And then she retains some nice edge quality along the banks and kind of her crisp edges, even though the values aren't that different in these foreground grasses between the grasses and the shadows. And then kind of some of the payoff is the tops of those trees. I'm going to undo some of these lines. It's a little distracting. Love the payoff of the tops of these trees. Look, you've got some crisp edges over here, harder edges, some kind of soft edges to almost lost edges in different areas as well, right? These edges get really soft. So we can play with that even within the same plane. We can play with hard edge, soft edge, lost edge. And again, it's all about trying to control the viewer. How do you want them to travel through your painting? What's the payoff? And how do we keep them within the painting as well? All right, let's go back to. Okay, so that makes sense, you guys. That's something that you know, in the first class, it was design and composition, now then color, and now into edges and brushwork. So now as we're looking at paintings, we have that opportunity to go through, observe, find out when they're misusing them. Like, man, this line right here, too close to this hard edge, this hard line right next to the edge of the painting, just shoots me off the scene. Or look how they're softening everything towards the edges just a little bit to kind of keep our focus in the middle. Or where does my eye really shoot across? Is that because it's an extreme, you know, a hard, crisp edge? Does my eye just skim across the soft edges where they want me to just skim across? You know, how are they telling me these are supporting characters versus main characters, and all of that? Let's go back over and do some painting. I'm not sure why it seems a little bit out of focus. I don't know if I have a dirty lens on there. There we go. Okay, you guys want another quick little break before we, it's 11. Yeah, let's take one more 5-minute break, and then I will spend the last hour doing some abstracts, and I would love some give and take and questions during that time. Thank you, guys.
Donna, this is Gail. How are you liking it? Yeah, I think so too. I think so too, in another whole hour of it. But now he's going to start to paint, so I think that will be interesting too. I've learned something. Me too. I have too. It is just, I think sometimes we innately do some of those things. I don't you think? I don't know. No. Where they are, I think that was really fascinating to me, because I don't think I've ever looked at that either. Anyway, I just had to hear what you thought. My sister is here.
Okay.
I know. My sister is here. Her name is Jan Slauson. I think she's a black square. She can't get her picture up today for some reason. I don't. She doesn't know either. Anyway, but she's.
Yeah, there's a number of people. There's like 5 people that don't have pictures for some reason.
Bye.
Huh. I don't know if they have to push a certain button on there. But it is being recorded, so people will be able to watch it as we go back. So the first 4 abstracts, I'll give a couple more minutes. I see a lot of empty chairs there. Everybody's grabbing a fresh cup of coffee, I hope. Hopefully I'm not putting people to sleep, but Denise, I'm so excited that you joined us. You are going to have so much fun with these different edges. I'm really looking forward to seeing what you do with your tonalist work with this.
I have an opportunity where I live. I think, you know, I've moved to an area where there's some beautiful lakes. And
Yeah.
I've got Quinn Sweetman is bringing a friend out here tomorrow.
Ooh.
And we started last week painting down at the lake, and it's just really great to have your class and be able to go down there and apply some of these ideas.
Yeah, maybe you should send me your address where you guys are meeting. Maybe I will surprise you out there.
Oh, sure. Okay.
If I can finish I've got a commission I need to get done for a wedding gift. So need to get that done so it can be drying in time. I'd hate to have that show up late or wet on their wedding day. So.
Well, we're kind of doing this every week now. And
for you, how far away do you think that is from Beaverton?
I'm going to say an hour and a half.
Okay, well, let's hope. No problem.
She usually gets here at 1 o'clock.
Oh, interesting. Pretty late.
It is, yeah.
Okay. Well, that might give me the morning then too to work on it if I'm not able to finish it tonight. Yeah, I'm excited to have all of you join me, and I look forward to getting to see everybody's work so I can know more specifically how to help each of you. I think Donna, when I was substituting in the class, weren't you working on a Schmidt painting? Weren't you kind of doing a slightly based on a, oops, can't hear you, sorry.
It was MALM or something like that, wasn't it, that I?
Oh, I'm not sure. Yeah, it was a beautiful reference that you were using. So Donna was doing a really neat, if I'm remembering correctly, you can help me if I'm remembering incorrectly, but it was a combination using one artist's kind of style and design elements and then combining it with a photo of yourself, was it? I'm sorry.
It must have been somebody else.
Oh, maybe so. Maybe
Oh,
so.
no, it was Catherine
Oh, maybe so.
sitting under the tree.
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of, the painting under the tree. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, so anyways, that is one of the neat things too about our Facebook page is I'm able to learn more about you and the kind of work that you like. If you would like to even post, you guys, some of your favorite paintings by other artists, you know, don't just have to post mine. I'm just kidding. You can, that really helps me to kind of go, you know what, okay, I see what you're kind of looking at as far as artwork, especially as we, you know, so if you are willing to look up tonalist paintings and maybe post a couple, especially ones you really like, I can dissect those a little bit and say, here's some of the elements that this artist was using. And then when we get towards the luminist or kind of more traditional landscape, and then again, as we go towards the end of the class and get towards the impressionists, I would love to have everybody sharing artists in those different styles that inspire us. And we might want to learn a little bit from them as well. I find it very useful a lot of times when I'm finishing up a big project, like I just dropped off a whole bunch of paintings for Dragonfire Gallery. And usually at the end of those projects, I'll clean up my studio to get it back into, so I'm not just stepping on stuff all the time and have room to work. But at the end, I'll find, man, I've got 5 books open. I've got 20 pictures up on my computer. I've got 3 printed out. I've got, you know, all these different things where I'm just taking little elements. And it's a great thing is like, how did this artist deal with this problem, this issue that I've set forth for myself? Because painting is such a strange and funny thing, because all we're doing is designing a problem for ourselves and then figuring out of all the millions and thousands of different ways to solve that problem, which ways work best for us at this moment. And it's really neat that with the computer and with all of our art books and everything else that we can just go, we can basically learn from all of the artists throughout time of how did all these different artists deal with these very similar issues: design, composition, color, temperature, value, and edge quality and brushwork. So anyways, I'm looking forward to learning more about that. All right, I'm going to step up to the easel. I think most people are back. The first 4 I'm going to do are very quickly going to be black and white. And then I will move over to color for the other 4. So I'm going to think Franz Klein for my first one. All right, so I've got my 4 different types of edges. I've got my, oops, wrong notes. I've got notes written all over the place. I had notes for last night's presentation, notes for today's class, notes for the rest of the classes. So I'm going to start with a hard, kind of focusing on hard edges. It's not going to be exclusive to each painting, but hard edges, firm edges, soft edges, and lost edges, dealing with black and white. And then I'm going to do the same thing in color. Any reference you want to use, it could be any photos. You don't even need references if you just want to play and experiment. This is a great opportunity to pull up some maybe odd mark making tools that you may have that you might want to experiment with. I was very much a one type of brush painter for years and years. If you took my early classes, you've probably heard me say, all you need are a couple flats, you know, medium length brushes, and they can do 90% of what you need a paintbrush to do. A flat is basically this brush. It's just straight with squared off edges. I think that that is your workhorse. You know, if you could only buy 1 or 2 or 3 brushes to start with, I suggest flats. What happens as I use my flats is the more they get used and abused, they do become filberts. And then when my filberts get so destroyed, you can cut those down to reshape them and they become shorts. So I found by buying almost all flats that I actually end up with 3 brushes over time. I do have other flats as well, and some have really nice long bristles. The longer the bristles, the more paint it can hold and the more manipulation you're going to have in your brush making. We're going to talk about this throughout this class. But in the last couple of years, I started painting more and more with my daughter, who does a lot of abstract painting. So she was the one that kind of said, you know what, let's use these other tools. She got into our sculpting kit and pulled out a whole bunch of the sculpting tools. This is a brayer for doing printmaking. We've got all different sizes. 2 of her favorite tools to use, because you know, I was introducing her to the palette knife, and that was fun for a little bit. But you know what's more fun than a palette knife? A cake frosting knife. You know what's more fun than a cake frosting knife? A giant cake frosting knife. And she literally paints with these. A lot of her paintings are really quite big, you know, 3 feet by 4 foot. But it is fun. She'll do kind of that Franz Klein underpainting with black and white or different grays, and just really rubbing that on. And then she'll go across that, roll that out, and she gets these beautiful, really interesting marks that brushes would just have such a hard way of making. She uses the kind of the window scrapers a lot to do things. So I'm going to urge you, and we will have time to experiment, but I didn't dare make a shopping list for you guys, a supply list that had all these random tools. So maybe you go to the dollar store and pick up a couple of things, or maybe you just go and raid your kitchen and probably never want to paint or cook with them again. But I'm all about weird and odd mark making tools. This tool was used also for printmaking, squeezing out, but it is a wonderful, wonderful tool. It's just a big piece of rubber with a fat end and a sharp edges. I use this for all sorts of things now. I also began to experiment with really, really long bristles. This is an Egbert, really a large one. I love doing my sketching. In fact, I'll probably do the Franz Klein. And you can really see that I can really make this brush do so many things. It's very bouncy and fun and dancey. And it does a lot of interesting things. You also saw the shop brushes that I use a lot of. I like these just because I don't even, if I really don't even feel like cleaning them, they're so cheap and they just fall apart. But I do find that as they get used and abused, some of them take on such interesting characters. A little bit in one of the next classes, I'll even talk to you about how I go in and manipulate these brushes and change them into doing different things by going through and cutting them, carving them. I've got chopsticks that I've sharpened down to do different, going back in. I use Q-tips all the time. I use paper towels all of the time. I bought this brush after watching a Kwon Ho video. It's called Blade, I believe. I've never used it. If you know Brenda Boylan, she uses Blade brushes a lot for her paintings, and they definitely have a different quality. I just haven't experimented with that. All sorts of types of palette knives. A good friend of mine, Amy Erickson, uses this very strange, long, skinny palette knife a lot. She gave me one of hers to experiment with, and I need to learn more about it. Another tool that I use a lot, this is probably one of my most expensive tools, is just old credit cards or gift cards. This one cost $10, but hopefully I used it on Amazon like I was supposed to. But I use these all the time. I use these for grasses. I use them for power lines. They're great for when you have a really crisp edge. You just put it up there and you can paint on the other side of it. So you end up with a really clean side. And that I will also dip it into my paint and make some interesting marks with that. Yeah, almost use it kind of like a spatula to do all sorts of different things. So anyways, in this class, it is painting on the edge. So it's about edge quality, but it's also going to be about brushwork. So we're going to learn the different elements of what makes a good brush mark and when to use different types of brush marks. And also I do urge you to begin to experiment and look outside of your brush box and say, what else can I make a mark with? When I go painting with my friend Don Bishop, he oftentimes will bring out some rubber bands and he'll simply on the backside of his brush grab grasses and different things that are on the ground and build his own paintbrush by wrapping the rubber band around it. And he makes really interesting things. I've watched him paint for a long time with just a piece of wheat, where he'll dip it in and it makes, so you're making unpredictable marks, putting them in the general area, and then you're responding. So a lot of fun. So let's go ahead and start with our Franz Klein. I'm going to add just a touch of paint thinner to my black. This is my hard edge. And let's see, I'm going to just drag this brush, let it make some of its calligraphy, let it be dancey and fun. I'm gonna let my arm paint. When we're beginning painters, we paint with our fingers, not literally, but we control our brush with our fingertips. As we move back on the brush, we're gonna become more of wrist painters, right? You're making bigger marks, bigger brush strokes. And then as we become better, we actually start painting with our shoulder. We're keeping our arms a little more stable, and we're really becoming, I like to say that people look like they're fencing, not building fences, but fencing with those little sabers, little swords. And they really are standing back, they're attacking. And it's a joyous experience when you start really just making marks, having fun, changing our pressure, and just kind of watching the marks that are going to happen. See if I can put that a little better in there. So I'm not committal. I am not too worried about the marks I'm making here. I can make it as much like an abstract or as a landscape as I want. I can make it as much just an abstract fun exercise in mark making. Just let the brush dance. Let the brush do what a brush should do. Okay, kind of getting repetitive negative shapes in here, so let's break that up. I'm going to let them try to be a little bit interesting. I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of gray into this just for some interest's sake. Did not clean my brush, maybe I should have. And I'm going to change my pressure and I'm going to load that brush with some white paint. And I'm going to see if I can't bring out something a little more interesting in here. By just barely touching, I can take the white paint on top and let it sit on top of my black paint there. If I add a little more pressure, so I've added white on top, but I have that gray underneath. So once I start hitting it a couple of times, and by adding a little more pressure, it's picking up the paint underneath it. I have no real end goal in mind, and you're probably going, well, obviously, look at whatever you're doing. But I'm just having fun. I'm just seeing what happens. I'm observing, saying, okay, well, that happens when I do that. That happens when I do that. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and leave that as is for now. Maybe I'll drag this in just a touch more. My next one is going to be firm, so I've got the kind of crisper edges here. Next one I'm going to have my black still. Touch of paint thinner. With this, I want my paint to be a little faster. So to make it a little faster, more like an ink across paper feeling, I'm just adding just a touch of paint thinner. And that will speed up the paint, allow it to not drag quite so much. Really watching my pressure. I'm going to do a real light pressure and I'm going to build it up as I come across. So I'm just going to let the brush skim across here, turning it. Now I'm going to start pushing it down onto the canvas, letting those bristles flare out. Now this is really important, is you can drag and flick at the end, drag and flick. And you get these nice soft broken edges. See that? Maybe I need to zoom in a touch more. Let's get that one back in the scene. Underneath the weird. So it's gonna be, I'm gonna take the paint that's there, pull up a little bit. I'm gonna drag and flick up. And you get these nice soft transitionary lines, drag and flick up. Maybe do a little bit of that down into here. All right, so this is my soft edge, so I'm gonna use some grays. Do a little more scrubbing. What I want to make sure is that I'm not just making the same repetitive mark. I'm not using the same pressure. It's not just 100 dabs of paint. I'm dragging some, I am dabbing some. I'm going to create that transition between the darks and the grays a little bit here. By letting them touch each other, kind of get in there a little bit to each other. So if you have some photo references maybe that you took, you can even zoom in to just certain elements of it that are non-representational almost, and see if you can find some interesting kind of design or ideas for that. I'm going to bring this line down. Adding some thick white paint on top. Trying not to quite touch the dark yet, because I'm going to use that. Now let's do a counter flick kind of down a little bit. I'm going to have my soft edge kind of at the top, as if it were kind of a hazy tree line. Let's bring back in some pure white. So I'm really going to load this brush up and have to put out more white paint. So there's a lot of paint on this one now. I'm just going to pull out a couple areas of focus. I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know if it's going to be interesting, but what if? I'm going to bring back a little bit over here too. All right, so now I'm getting closer to soft edge here. So I'm just going to go, and this is again, just real quick. I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm just going to do a little black. Area here. So here's scrubbing. I'm just covering the space.
Do you have much paint thinner in that?
Probably a little more, yeah, but it's still on there pretty thick. Like I can still see the brush marks and the bristles on there. I have to reload my white here just a second. And I'm going to go ahead and actually soften that back out. Just playing, so this is my soft edge. Let's add the very into my white paint. Let's see, what do we get here? Let's bring it. You see how I'm just letting that brush just kind of dance around there. Maybe this is kind of a hint of a cloud or something, I don't know. It's barely representational. What I want you to think about in abstract artwork is all artwork is abstract. Okay, just some of it is more refined and becomes more representational. Some of it goes all the way to the non-objective. So I almost like to think of paintings as objective, meaning trying to represent something, to non-objective being on the very other end, where it's just all about, you know, shapes, patterns, lines. And what I like about abstraction is I'm taking away elements. I'm not worrying about all of the different elements at the same time. I can take away the need to represent anything, and I can take away the need to worry about color. I can take away whatever it is, and then I can really focus in on whatever it is that I want that painting to be about, whether it's about edge quality or it's about brushwork, which is what ours is going to be about. I don't want you to really worry too much about anything besides edge quality and brushwork. If you need to write down a note to remind yourself, edge quality and brushwork. That is what this painting is about. It's not about making a beautiful abstract or making it look like anything. Edge quality, brushwork. I would also like you to use this opportunity to experiment with thin paint and thicker paint. All right, now we are to lost edge. So here it's going to be really soft. Maybe I can start with the white. I'm adding quite a bit of paint thinner. Lots of scrubbing going on, and I'll build this up after I kind of lose all my edges. Right now I just want to lose those edges. My daughter makes fun of me when we paint abstracts together, because she's like, you always end up making it look like a landscape. And I don't, yeah, I guess I do. I always want my lights to be on the top, my darks on the bottom, and in the middle I can have my mid areas, because that's just kind of a generic landscape. Remember, for those of you that were in my class, about the 3 values or 4 value rules for landscape painting. Now I can very softly brush that out, and I can really just lose those edges. And this one, I could say that the edges are lost because look at the values are so close, but I still retained quite the edge in between my very close values. So maybe so I'm following the rules, I'll soften some of those a little bit more. Let's take some of this white and just flick it out. Ooh, that's nice. Maybe flick it out the other way, get a little more movement. Maybe I can bring that gray in, make that negative shape a little more interesting. Again, I have no idea what's going on. It's up to you guys to go, that looks like Mount St. Helens. Anyways, am I happy with this shape now? I just want you to have fun. Let the brush spin and turn as you're doing it. Again, loading up different amounts of paint. This is your opportunity to go crazy and try the things that you wouldn't dare try on your beautiful painting of your granddaughter that you're working on, or the, you know, perfectly rendered picture of the flowers in your garden. This is your chance to just be free, try new things, and play. So let's see. Hopefully our color ones maybe will be a little more fun and interesting, but I still am just gonna try to abide kind of loosely by the same rules. And again, I'll have these photographed on the Facebook page. I don't want you to replicate anything that I'm doing. Just so you can kind of see and be reminded.
So Michael, a question, would it make sense to take a reference photo and use the same one for all four? Just
sure, yeah, that would be a lot of fun. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, I actually ran around the studio during the break and grabbed kind of my piles of these that I do. And let's see if I can find it. There's one of these where that's in fact what I, actually two of them that I did. So believe it or not, all four of these are painted using the same reference photo. It was actually a underside of a vineyard, but I zoomed in on it and didn't care about it being representing anything. And I just had fun just pushing the temperature on them differently, the brush work on them differently, focusing in on different elements of the photo. This one started off with one, this is actually just a rolling field of a kind of a vineyard. So that's kind of the most representational one. And then I just used the design elements and tore it apart. And then these two evolved from there. They're a little more representational again. But this one was really fun. If it'll focus in on the brushwork, really thick and interesting, just letting the brush just drag across and letting other elements. And then this one was just about warm and cool, kind of in inverse of each other. But yeah, I do these a lot. These little just put some tape on. This one was all about what would happen with the warm yellow background in different exercises. I really liked how this one ended up. You know, you can see I still start reverting back towards my landscape a little bit, but a lot of fun. Just this was used, that white squeegee thing, just to go in there and wipe back away, and it ended up making it look like trees. But these are a great when I just need to loosen up or when I'm just playing. This was another, what happens if I just take the really, really warm colors and leave them alone, just using some darker and lighter. It was actually about using thick and thin of the almost the same color. This one was introducing some cool colors on top of the warms. This was just different amounts of transparent paint, thicker paint with hardly changing the color, and how it's a very, very, very translucent blue kind of oceany color. And then when I put it thicker or added a touch of gray to it, what it did. And it's really interesting under the different light, how it really does look like the Mediterranean, because the light's bouncing through that down to what would be the white of the canvas or the white of the sand if it was the Mediterranean, then I'm bouncing back up. And how do I get some of those illusions and ideas? This one was just a design idea that I had. And it was almost like, what happens if I just paint a frame around it and almost leave the middle areas as non-committed? And I just tried that in a couple different colors, and I really like this one. I may actually try painting that up bigger. So yeah, I just try different ideas. For those of you who were in the design class and did the different thumbnails and notans, this is just such a fun way, kind of thinking Franz Klein again, or maybe somewhere in between, of how could I just introduce this, if I was looking at Sherry's painting here, how would what would be the darks, what would be the lights, what would be the mids, but almost abstracted. Maybe I would turn it upside down or turn it sideways and see, or maybe I would zoom in on just a certain area. So that's completely up to you guys, how you want to progress with it. If you want to do, one image over and over in different ways, letting it evolve, or if you want to, whatever you guys want to do. I want you to just have fun and play while you're hopefully learning. I always like the fact that they call it playing the piano, because yeah, it should be fun. It should be play. And so I think we should play at painting while we're practicing and while we're learning. Go ahead. I think I heard a beginning of a question.
So as we do these assignments focusing on the edge quality and the brush strokes, do you definitely want it to be abstract if we did choose like one image to do 4 different ways?
I want you to not care too much about anything. So if it, even those 4 I just did all ended up looking somewhat like a landscape, but if it ends up a beautiful little landscape, that's fine. Whatever you want to do. If it's abstraction, has, like I said, from representational all the way to non-representational, anywhere you want to lie on that line is fine with me. And if you just came back and said, I couldn't help it, this painting, this one evolved and became, a little more finished, that's fine. Edge and brushwork, that's what I care about. All right, so now I'm going to deal with the edge and brushwork using color. So maybe I need to show you guys a little more of the color, zoom back out just a touch. I need to add some more weight because I used it all. All right, so my first one is going to be hard edge, high contrast. So let me think for a second. In my first example, I used yellow and purple. That's pretty extreme. Let's blue and orange is a nice extreme color contrast. And then I could do, you know, one of them is a lighter value. So what I'm going to do, I think might be horrible, we'll see, is I'm going to do a light blue and a dark orange as my strong contrast. And I just ended up with paint all over my hand. Sorry, as I was grabbing that blue tape off to throw it away. So give me 1 second while I wipe my hands off, otherwise I'll end up with paint everywhere. So I want a dark blue, so I've got some black on this brush. No, light blue, dark orange. So I'm going to do a chromatic, transparent orange here. Add some more red to that. More yellow. So pretty horrendous browny orange there. Let's a little tiny dab of paint thinner. Yeah, it'd be nice. Maybe I should have grabbed a reference or two to. All right, now I'm going to mix up some light blue. So I'll grab my quinacridone blue and quite a bit of white. Let's see how these guys play together. So I've got a pretty high value shift, as in lighter versus darker. Also have a high chroma shift from blue to orange. Load that brush up. Grab a little different blue. A little redder. Not being very good about not letting my colors mix very much here, but it's all right. And let's add a little bit of pink into that blue, make a purple, light purple. Trying not to hit the edge, but it's doing it anyways and making some interesting little tiny brown marks in there. Let me grab more pink. Clean my brush one time. I'm going to dab some more light blue, very light blue, mostly white. Yeah, just playing. It's definitely not going to end up my favorite one, but I'm going to go ahead and bring an element of darker brown into there as well. Who knows? Looks a little crazy. what do I got? The next one is my soft edges. What do I want to do here? So I'm going to start off with a real dark top. What color? I'm going to go dark purple. Bringing in some of the reds. See what happens. Those are much more interesting marks than anything I made over here. Back to that purple. Let's add some white into that purple so we can actually see it a little bit. So I've got kind of a very dark, is that just reading as black on the monitor?
No, it looks dark purple.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna take that and I went ahead and let the edges be a little more red. And I just do because we're getting to let's do an orange top there. I'm gonna let this one be a little drippier. So I've actually added some paint thinner. And I might even let some of the dripping make its way in, we'll see. I'm letting some of those colors transition over. I guess my drips are for the next painting down below. They jumped all the way down there.
Excuse me, Michael, is this second one called a transition edge?
Yeah, or a firm edge, basically. So I had the hard edge. Now it's kind of a firm where you're going to really see it, but it's definitely has a little softer transition in between.
Like the third color?
Yeah, it would be like the third color. So there goes purple to red to yellow.
Okay.
And then purple to a warmer purple to a cooler purple. Here we're going purple towards, well, I guess it ended up being green. I thought it was going to be blue, but wants to be green. Let's get more towards the yellow again, so it kind of speaks to the top a little bit. Whew. Let that get ugly fast. My brushes are not very clean, but so there I've got more transitions going on, you know, purpley gray, green gray, yellow, purples, and whatever that color is on top, kind of a peachy color on top. And maybe I'll do a little bit of an orange transition down in this corner. Getting a borderline garish there, a little bit too much stuff going on, but having fun, making lots of marks. Kind of like it. I'm gonna bring back a drip of paint again. Let's see. See if it drips. It's gonna be a very slow drip. If it does, maybe what I can do is take my Q-tip, load it up with some paint thinner, and there we go.
Michael, your picture is small again.
In the group thing?
Yeah, there, now it's back.
Huh, okay. Interesting. All right, so now we're getting to soft edge. So I'm just gonna do more, keeping it almost monochromatic. I think I'll go from let's go back to that dark purple, but make a prettier purple. So I'm going kind of from a reddish on the right side to a more bluish purple on the left side. And I'm gonna let just introducing a little color up there. And bring some black down into the bottom of it to bind the warm and the cool down on the bottom. And now this is the soft edge, so it's not quite lost. I can have some elements of edge. And feel free, it doesn't need to be like a soft edge painting, doesn't have any hard edge or anything else. It's just kind of that becomes the focus. So step back, I've got those darks are very strong edge. So I'm gonna come back in maybe with a clean brush, or maybe I'll grab one of my shop brushes and I'll do some of that flicking, even though the thicker paint is, so I'm just flicking it up a little bit, letting it, maybe I'll drag that out, move it around. Let this edge really soften out. And what if maybe I brought in some of that dark that I picked up onto my brush a little bit up there. These two shapes are too replicating of each other, so I'm gonna do something with that. I'm just kind of letting the edges get as lost as they want, or kind of interesting. Maybe I'll just keep taking this up to see what happens. Down and up and down. Don't know. Or maybe Sometimes I'm letting the brush be loaded and do something fun. Other times I'm just kind of lightly ruining the edges. So this is my opportunity to just see what loses edges, what finds edges, when do they come back, when do they go away. I think this one could do with a little point of interest. One of my favorite points of interest, just as a little pink dab, a little bright pink dab. Let's see what happens. Nope, I need to load the brush. So I'm gonna get a longer, maybe this one. This is an interesting brush that I've never used, but it's sure got some really long bristles. So let's see if I can load that up. I'm really trying to get some paint on there, see if I can get it to stick. Gives a little bit of interest. I don't know still what's going on. Pull off a little of this paint and bring it over here. Okay, there, I think something, we'll see, I don't know. Kind of looks like you're looking maybe off from on top of the gorge towards some gorgy shapes down there, I don't know. I'm having fun. Hopefully you guys are having fun too. Hopefully you drink a lot of coffee and you're not falling asleep on me. All right.
That's
So now,
awesome. I really like that one.
thank you, me too. I think that's my favorite so far. I like this one too now more. Some of those dripping didn't really drip as much as just kind of explode out, but interesting texture. And I can always come back, right? I could literally grab my palette knife and make these shapes more interesting. You know, what does it want? What does it need? I don't care if I ruin it. You know what? I'm just learning. And you know how you learn the best? Take it too far. You know how all painters are always like, you gotta know when to stop. You gotta know when to stop. I'll tell you what, that is almost an impossible thing. So what I say is go too far and then go back a step. Or go too far and learn for the next painting. These are definitely your opportunity to go too far. I haven't showed you too that with these, there's opportunities to go back in and wipe back off. Right? So the painting's not one way or the other. Now I've got this interesting mix of color. It's got interesting marbling going on. Yeah, I just don't like this painting. So, you know, figuring out what can I do to make that something, maybe, hopefully. I don't know what's going to be interesting. It may never be interesting. Maybe it's just the fact that it's brown and blue together looks odd. I don't know. My squeegee. Let's kind of ruins my Franz Klein. It's no longer strong edge, but I do already find that to be more interesting than it was. Anyways, I'll come back to that. Let's not waste time on it. All right, so soft, super lost edge now. Oh boy. I do kind of like what I had going on here. Super lost edge. Let's go pink. I haven't done pink yet, besides that little dab. You're getting more and more landscape each one I go. What color goes with pink? Bright yellow. Bright yellow and pink love each other. Scrub, 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 lost edges completely. Let's see here, the pressure changing as I go out from the edge. Where does one color start and the other color end? Where does one value start and the other value end? Really soft edges. I definitely have a mountain going there, don't I? Gotta get rid of that. Maybe I can have just a hint of it. Let's bring some of that pink back down. So thin, I can't pick it up. All right, well, they all ended up landscapes, sort of. Unfortunately, my top one is my least favorite, but maybe I'll work it a little later after we take a little break. Let's do a quick unveiling and kind of talk about what we did here. So any questions, you guys? Class is pretty much over now. Of kind of what I'm hoping you guys will do while we are apart this week. Anybody still there? So my hope is a couple different abstracts, playing with edges, playing with brush marks, playing with high contrast, sharp edges, low contrast, lost edges, and everything in between. Trying to see, how does my eye travel through these paintings? What happens, you know, on the soft edges versus the hard edges? What happens with a soft edge painting, maybe with one hard edge, or, you know, something, you know, this one looks so much like a landscape here. The last one I did with all the soft edge. Let's see what happens. Yeah, I actually like these two. Do a little palette knife and get just a dab of light, because I can't help myself, because I like glowing skies, and that looks like a glowing sky.
That top left almost looks like a snowy scene with a path.
Yeah, it did end up like that. You're right. Yeah, with kind of ugly, spindly trees, and yeah, it's interesting.
I see buildings on that horizon too.
It's growing on me, that little snow scene. It's really growing on me a lot.
I know. I think you could turn that into something really beautiful if you wanted to.
Thank you. Yeah, that was really fun.
I see a house there on the upper left corner.
On the horizon, yeah, I do too.
What's that?
A couple of buildings.
A house in the woods there, up on the left.
Yeah, that might be a witch's house, though. You might want to stay away from that one.
I like it.
I like them all.
Michael, tell us again what the focus for next week is.
Thank you.
For next week, we are going to be learning about tonalism, or Or do you mean what's the focus as far as homework that I'm giving
Oh,
this?
no. Just what are we going to learn next week?
Next week is going to be tonalism.
All
And
right.
I will be posting some examples. I'd love it if you guys wanted to look up tonalist paintings.
Mhm.
There's a great tonalist group on Facebook. I think it's literally just called Tonalist.
Okay.
I can see if I can't find a link to that. And basically tonalism in the very, most abstract idea of it is that it's very limited colors.
Mhm.
So a lot of earthy colors generally, but you can do tonalism in any colors really. So if you wanted to do a purple painting or pink painting or whatever, I'm not going to worry too much about the colors, but it's limited colors. So color becomes less interesting to us. And what becomes interesting is the brushwork. We're going to be using more soft edged brushwork in it, more lost edge brushwork in it. And we're going to make a moody, moody doesn't necessarily mean dour and sad, but a moody kind of piece, landscape. You can use references, you can make it up. And I will show you a couple of different techniques that are really fun for building a tonalist painting pretty quickly. And yeah, so tonalism next week. I hope you're looking forward to it. I love tonalism. And I think it's just a great tool as we develop as painters, because again, we're taking out elements. We're not going to worry about detail too much. We're gonna do a lot of implied detail.
Good.
Cool.
And next week, I do need some help with the homework. Are we doing 4 of what you just did like that?
Yeah, I would like to see 4. They can be color, they can be black and white, they can be a combination. You can do, I would like to see 4 at least. And I don't care if you have lost and soft and hard and all the different types of edges within each piece, if that's what it ends up evolving to. But I just want you to be aware of the edge quality that you're making as you make it. And when we go back and look at it, I want you to be able to tell me, this is kind of where I'm thinking the eye is going. This is, hard edge, soft edge, and just seeing what does it do for the different elements. If you put soft edges at the bottom versus at the top, what does that do? How does our eye travel across it? They can be any size you want. If they're simple little 2" by 2" or whatever, or you can make 4 8x10s if you have a whole bunch of canvases laying around, or a whole bunch of old paintings that you want to paint over. Oh man, you can do neat abstracts on top of old paintings because you can let some of that show through. Yeah, and what's neat too with old paintings is you can bring back some of it. You can wipe back into it and allow some of that to show through. So I just want you guys to have fun. I want you to focus on edges, variation in edges, and brushwork, and just maybe a couple of you guys get brave and you paint with some wheat. I don't know, but have fun. And I can't wait to hear back from you throughout the week of just what happened. It might be a pile of disasters, but I'm hoping that you at least are learning and playing and experimenting. All homework instead, like I said, with piano, playing piano. I don't want to practice piano. I want to play piano. And I want to play painting. I don't want to practice painting. I want to play. And while we play, I think we're going to learn a lot from ourselves and from each other.
Good.
Cool.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael.
You guys were awesome. Thank you so much. I will
Very much. That was fun.
Oh, thank you. I will record the video. Well, it's recording. I will download it to my computer and hopefully have it up on YouTube by this evening. And it will be up and available to you for a long time. So watch it, rewatch it, rewatch, you can fast forward to the fun parts and paint along. And anyways, it was great. I look forward to meeting all of you. Jan, I look forward to meeting you.
She's my
I'm here. I'm in the desert.
What's that?
I'm in the desert. I'm in Palm Springs area.
Oh, lucky you. Hopefully it's not too hot.
About 90.
Oh, good.
This is my view today.
What is it? Sunny.
We got snow last night.
Oh my gosh.
We did. It's been gorgeous here, and last night it snowed and we woke up to like 3 inches of snow. But
where are you?
You. Yeah.
Where are you?
I'm in Buffalo, well, just outside of Buffalo, New York.
Oh my gosh.
Check it out.
All over the place here.
Yeah.
Amazing.
All of the trees are in bloom and all of the flowers are out and they're all just lobbed with.
Yeah. Wow. Well, you got
I'm in Maryland. You see from my window, it's a sunny day. It's a very beautiful day.
And where are you?
Maryland.
Maryland.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maryland.
my.
Yeah. Beautiful backyard. A sunshine. Okay.
Let's see if I can take myself off pin so we can all see each other. There we go. Okay, hopefully everybody can see everybody. And look at that, man, 12 of you or 11 of you stayed. That's fantastic. Yeah. And you guys are awesome. Stay in touch on Facebook.
Okay.
Is the best way to stay in touch. If you need to, or if I'm missing anything, you can email me. I think in the last class, I had people getting in touch with me about 5 different ways, and I just don't want to miss it. And I don't also want to spend very much time on my computer. So Facebook is the best. It gives me one place to check. And that way also everybody else can hear the answers to your questions. And when I'm being mean critiquing, they can stand up for you and say, no, I'm just kidding. Anyways, you guys, let's have a great week and enjoy your snow and 90-degree weather and your little sun and everything else, you guys. All right, I'll see you in a week.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.